All right, so some of these problems might have been a little bit tricky for you. So we'll just kind of walk our way through it. So the first one is pretty straightforward. This is just the product, kind of the product rule here. So we have 2 plus 4 plus 3. So 2 plus 4 is 6 plus 3. There's just 9 A's. Another way to approach this, how many A's? And there were 9 of them. So there's 8 to the ninth. Here we've got to use our power, kind of do a power rule. So we still have that x to the third, so I'm going to jot it down, but I'm going to leave it for just a minute. So I have 5 squared, and then that original x doesn't have an exponent, which means it's really a 1. So 2 times 1 is 2. Well, give me just minutes. We have x to the third. 5 squared is 25, and then we have x squared. Well, now I can combine those x's. So there's a grand total. There's 3 x's here, 2 x's there. So there are 5 x's. And a lot of times what we want to do is put the, if there is a number, put it out front. So 25x to the fifth. Here we don't have any power to power rules, but we just want to start kind of combining what you see. So you have 2 x's here, 1 there. So we have 3 total x's. There's 1 y and 2 y's. So y to the third. We have the 3 on the very, very front. Here, I don't see any negative exponents. There's no power to power kind of things you have to worry about. We just kind of have to go through and count. So you have 2 A's. There's another 1 and another 1. So we have a grand total of 4 A's. Here's a B. There's 3 more B's. And then 1 more at the end. So 1, 3 more is 4. There's 5 B's. And then come back, and any of the coefficients or any of the whole numbers, let's go ahead and multiply those. So negative 3 times 2 is negative 6. Now there is a negative here, but it's not a negative exponent. There's no negative exponents. It's okay to have a negative coefficient. There's no negative exponents, so we're okay. We're done with number 4. Number 5, here we go. We've got to quote unquote distribute that third power in there. So this will turn into 3 times 2 is 6, and then there are 3 D's there. And then distribute that 2. So it becomes C squared, and this will turn this into 6 D's. Now go ahead and start putting things together. There are 6 C's plus another 2 there. So we end up with 8 C's, 3 D's there, 6 D's there. So that will be 9 total D's. All right. So here we go. Let's go ahead and send this 3 all the way through. Don't forget, the one thing a lot of people will forget is that 2. So we have 2 to the third. X ends up being to the sixth. Y being to the ninth. Take this 2 to all 3 pieces. So you have to do 3 squared. X will turn into the sixth, and then 2 times 0 is still 0. 2 to the third. 2 times 2 times 2 actually ends up being 8. 3 squared ends up being 9. And then we have x to the sixth, y to the ninth. And then x to the sixth, y to the 0. Now let's start combining what we can combine. So we have 6 x's here, 6 x's there, for a grand total of 12 x's. 9 y's here, 0 y's there, which will just stay as 9 y's. And then we've got to do 8 times 9, and that is 72. So we end up with 72 x to the 12th, y to the ninth. All right. Here we have a negative sitting out front, but it is not with any of the exponents, so don't let that trip you out or anything. Really, just take that 5 through. So we'll leave the negative alone, end up with 15 total z's on the numerator and 10 total y's on the bottom. And since all of our exponents are positive, we're done with number 7. Just throw that negative out front and move on with it. Here, let's go ahead and put our 2 into all of these. Everything gets the 2, so we don't forget the 4. So we have 4 squared. We end up with 4 x's, and then negative 3 times 2 for the y's is negative 6. And then we end up with 2 times negative 2 for the y's in the bottom, which is minus 4. Now, we got a negative exponent in the numerator, negative exponent in the denominator, which means really, let's switch places with them. So x to the fourth is going to stay put. So this y to the fourth right here is going to come to the top. These 6 y's are going to go to the bottom. And then we also have this 4 squared, which turns into 16. We're almost there. We got one more step because we have 6 y's here and 4 y's in the numerator. Now, one of the tricks I like to play is where are there the most y's? Well, there's 6 in the bottom and there's 4 in the top, which means we have more y's down here in the bottom. How many more y's? Well, 6 is 2 more than 4, so we'll have 2 y's left over. If we were to expand this number all the way out, we'd have a 16, we'd have 4 x's and 4 y's, and then we'd have 6 y's in the denominator. And when you start canceling all that stuff out, 1, 2, 3, 4 x's, and 1, 2, 3, 4 y's, and then 6 y's in the bottom, 3, 4, 5, 6. What you'd end up with, 2 y's are left over in the denominator. Well, hopefully we start getting to the point where we recognize there's more y's in the denominator, which means if I were to cancel, how many would be left over? Well, that answer would be 2 here. There's nothing to cancel with the 16, and there are no x's to cancel. And as you can see, when I expand it all the way out, all the y's are gone from the numerator. So there's my final answer. Here we just got to take it one step at a time. It can be overwhelming initially, but one step at a time. So let's multiply everything by that -2. So we end up with x. -5 times -2 is +10. -1 times -2 is +2. So we took care of the first one. Now we quote-unquote distribute this 3. 2 times 3 is 6. -4 times 3 is -12. So there's the first step. Now let's start putting these together as best we can. This -12 should go in the denominator. So let's take a step here. And we have 10 x's and another 6. We end up with x to the 16th, y to the 2nd, and then we end up with y to the 12th in the denominator. Now, if we were to expand this all the way out, I don't want to do it. That's a lot of x's. There's 16 of them. This would be a ton of y's. I'm not doing that all the way out. What we can do is start kind of thinking our way through this. If we were to do that and expand it, where would there be leftover y's? Well, since there's 12 here, we'd end up with a total of 10 left over. X's, nothing's going to cancel out, so we end up with x to the 16th over y to the 10th. These y's would end up being canceled if we were to expand this all the way out, kind of like we did back here, number 8, but there's so many variables, I don't want to do that. Number 10 looks a little bit scary on the surface, but we take it one step at a time, we can handle this thing. So the first thing we have to realize, we have x to the -10, which means that needs to switch down to the denominator. And this x to the first needs to switch up to the numerator. So my first step, the 5 is going to stay put, but now I'm going to put that x to the first here. Y is going to stay put. We have z squared. Everything's good there. The 2 is going to stay put, but now I'm going to bring that x to the 10th to the bottom. Now here's the thing. When it switches places, if it switches numerator to denominator or denominator to numerator, that's when you get rid of negative. So as you can see, I don't know if that's been causing a little bit of confusion. When this x to the first switched to the numerator, the 1 became positive. When that x to the -10th switched to the denominator, that 10 became positive. And that's how we're going to play this game to keep all the exponents positive. I almost forgot. Let's get that y to the 3rd in here. Now it's time to start simplifying all the way through. The 5 and the 2 aren't going to change. Everything's good there. Now let's look at x's. If we start canceling x's, where are there going to be leftover x's? Now the answer should be in the denominator. There's 10 of those, which means when all would be said and done, we'd be left with 9 in the denominator. Here in the numerator, we have 1 y. We have 3 y's in the denominator. So if I expanded and I started canceling, I'd be left with 2 y's in the denominator. There would be no x's left. There would be no y's left, but you would still have the 2 z's in the top because nothing's canceling. So as you turn the page and you look at page 4 and 5, kind of pick your way through these 2 pages. These would be your homework assignment, and then the video at some point later we'll post so you can check your homework answers